Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Steve Hall. You might not recognize me because I have a moustache, but probably what you don't recognize if you are watching, because I appreciate a lot of people listen to this, is Pascal's new background.
Yeah.
He's in a new home.
It's
going?
only a temporary background though, because a company out of the UK, I think that they were based in the UK, weren't able to deliver my standing desk or hydraulic desk.
You press a button and it goes up and down.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, I want one of those.
Yeah, I always wanted one of those, and we're always thinking like, okay, I'm first going to purchase one once we are moving houses. Now it was the time, in anticipation of the move, so that I don't have to set up my desk twice. I was actually timing it so that the delivery matches when we are moving in. But it never arrived, and I never got a message from the company as well. So I reached out to them. They actually said like, yeah, oh, sorry, our fault, going to send it here today. Never happened again, right? And then I just canceled the order and ordered something out of Germany. Yes. Hopefully it's arriving here over the next couple of days. And then I'm changing things around one more time. And then hopefully I will settle in with a setup that will become the go-to setup. And yeah, by the way, to turn it around, not just is my background new, but your mustache is new as well. And I already told you, you look like Henry Cavill in Mission Impossible. Oh yeah. So everyone who's watching now, take a look at Steve. Go type in over on Google Henry Cavill Mission Impossible and go and see that comparison.
That guy, that comparison is... I wish I looked more like him.
Very humbling comparison, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's a very handsome mate. Yeah. And he's British, so there is somewhat of a connection there. I mean, the roots are there.
I was saying to Charlotte, I kind of wish I was born with like this little bum chin. He's got a little bit of a bum chin, hasn't he? That just adds something to the face.
Yeah. Yeah, I already told you that Katie finds him very hot as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is all right, because I find them hot as well.
Who doesn't?
If there is one guy she could cheat on, then it's him, because I would do the same thing.
I didn't even realize. I can't believe I didn't realize he was the Witcher. I was watching it,
crazy,
and it wasn't until a few episodes in I was like, "That's what? Okay."
To be honest, I haven't watched an episode of The Witcher. I know there have been so many memes being thrown around, and I even played The Witcher 3 back on PC. What is it now? Must have been 8-9 years or so. Yeah, and it's crazy because I haven't watched an episode yet. But
I was caught up in the hype. I didn't even know what The Witcher was, but I just started watching it. I was like, this is weird. Cool shit. I enjoy this. And he's in it, so yeah, kind of makes it
always worth it then. Best Superman.
Yeah, true.
He is Superman.
You're in a new house. Has your gym changed now? Are you training in a new gym?
I'm training at Clever Fit, which is not very much a cool gym. However, I do you remember when I said like I actually went training at that new gym when they opened up in the state here in Brandenburg? The state of Brandenburg opened up their gyms or reopened the gyms 1 week earlier than Berlin. So I went over, already signed up for the new membership, and then went there and trained like a couple of times, and it was very busy. However, that was also on bank holidays. So now, after a couple of days having been back in Berlin training at my old gym and now actually finally moving, which is much closer than to the Clever Fit, I went back there and it's all right. It's not as busy anymore, which is very, very cool. I mean, they have a limited amount of equipment there, but everything's better than the lockdown situation. So, I mean... It's all right. It's all right. But
what haven't they got?
I mean,
what are you missing?
For example, the hack squat machine. So that's why I keep my membership over on McFit. I'm not kidding. Just to actually have access to the hack squat machine. And every once in a while, it's just nice to have access to the McFit gyms because they are all across Europe. And they are even considering now moving over to the US as well. I don't know how it is now with the Corona situation, whether it is actually financially a good idea to do that. But yeah, because of that, I'm leaving just my membership. It's only $20 per month. I never thought about it up until now when I needed to sign up for a second membership at a different gym, that I think that I could make it tax deductible, couldn't I? Because I'm a personal trainer, right? So yeah, why not have a couple of memberships then? Stupid me, wasted a couple of pounds and euros here over the past couple of years because I never made it tax deductible. Idiot. But a couple of things they don't have, a couple of things they have which McFit doesn't have. So yeah, it's complaining on a very high level because I can make everything happen everywhere. So
especially when you've gone through what everyone's had to go through. Exactly. You realize how inventive you can be. You can hack squat off your wall, Pascal. You don't need to go and do the hack squat.
Exactly. No, but all in all, it's closer. And the good thing is, which is kind of a good thing, now very close to me, they are building a new shopping center. I hate shopping centers, by the way. I don't know how it is with our US listeners, because I know that it is going to a mall is kind of, maybe I'm just like spoiled from like TV shows, and that is actually not the case. But going to the mall is like more of a typical thing. Here, it's kind of a thing where you're just like cringing a little bit. Anyway, a new shopping mall is going to be built here just right next to me. And there, they are opening up a Clever Fit as well. And that gym is only like 5 minutes away from me, which will be freaking great. But I think that they will first open doors 2021, 2022 or so. Yeah. But hey, mate, that would be cool, because right now I'm training twice daily, which isn't really a problem when you have a motorbike and the weather is good outside. But when it's colder or getting colder, I can already see myself then being like, oh God, I need to drag my ass off over to the gym again in the dark, even though that is only 3 p.m. or so.
I can tell you when you're overreaching, and for me, it was walking. Well, it's like a 10-minute walk, but if it's raining, it's cold, it's dark. I always did my sessions. I've never skipped one, but it's tempting, and you do put it off. Yeah. So I can see that.
And this is something I think is also the case for many people now who have gone through the coronavirus situation and kept on training from at home. We said it when the lockdown happened, and I say it now again, and I think this was kind of a proof or a testament of willingness to train, or how much you really like it. Are you doing it for a different purpose, or are you really doing it because you love it? Because if you really do it because you love it, you'll find a way to still make it happen. Yes, it sucks, but the alternative is not training at all, and that is probably even worse than just getting something in, right? And now them being back at the gym, holy shit, it just shows you how freaking much you love it. Or if you're just like indifferent about it, or because for me, it was just like I was reunited with my love, which I haven't seen for a very long time, right? So you are in that relationship. It's a little bit boring at times because it's the norm. And because of that, you take it for granted. The relationship, the relationship that you have with your loved one, and you don't really appreciate it as much as you should. So then there comes a time where you are both separated for a very long time, and you start to realize what it is that you're missing. And then at some point you're reunited, and it feels like as if you just got together. It's the love has reignited, right? And this is the way I feel now as well. I was just like, I'm so pumped about going to the gym. It's unbelievable. It's like listening now to Arnold at Pumping Iron. You can just very much relate to what he was talking about.
The the saying is distance makes the heart grow fonder. So
Yeah.
I can
And
see
I mean,
that.
for you, it's now on the 4th of July that gyms are reopening, correct?
That is what they're saying. I mean, I don't want to be presumptuous and be like, gyms are definitely opening at that time, because things could change. Gyms are probably one of the worst places for it to spread. So I don't know. But everything else is followed plan. Nothing else is like, they said shopping, like shops and everything are open now, like non-essential shops. They opened on the 15th. They were planned to open on the 15th. So everything seems to be falling in place for the 4th of July for places to open. But I haven't had an email from the gym. Other people have from their gyms. I think Pure Gym apparently have sent out emails. So we'll see if it opens.
It's the Independence Day. For the
It is Independence Day. When they said 4th of July, I was like, oh, God. not happy about this day.
Every gym bro is just like, freedom. Oh, yeah. No, but I think, like, honestly, so many people who are now based in the UK will go back into the gym on the 4th of July, hopefully, will then, at that point, realize how I felt. Many of our listeners will be like, okay, I couldn't really relate to what he was saying when I listened to it, but now being back at the gym for the first time since a very long time, I just like, shit, I want to go back in just an hour again. And this is how I feel, and buddy, you will love it being back.
For me, I can relate a little bit to what you're saying, only from the like getting my dumbbells and like just getting those. I was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. These like spin lock dumbbells. And it's just like, I just having trained with body weight for only a couple of weeks, and then these came. So I can feel that. Part of me, I wonder how I will feel, because I've actually, the convenience of training from home has sold me on a home gym, because I just can be more efficient, like not having to commute like 40 minutes a day. It's just like, oh, I can use that time towards, I don't know, whatever else I want. It's quite nice. And then it also reduces the chance of ever feeling like you don't want to train, or the excuse, which has been nice. But I wonder how I feel, just because I've been lucky enough to have a wide range of equipment and like barbell and everything. However, having said that, I did just I just lightly said the CUNT word when I was doing deadlifts, because I came up and I hit this desk that I'm sitting on here, and I smacked it. I was like, yeah, because the space is limited, I will say.
I think, I mean, we talked about it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that for you it may be a little bit different, because it wasn't like nothing. You still had a rack, you had like the pulley machine here in the background. So it's not like a hard transitioning back. It's not you being on rehab or so, coming from a cocaine addiction or something like that. You still took a little bit of cocaine throughout the entire thing, and now it's going back to the party, right? Once the clubs are reopening. But at the same time, I, and also a couple of my athletes who are now back at the gym, have said like, there's just something about the gym that I do appreciate. I can't really name it.
Yeah.
Same goes for me. It's not, I don't really know anyone at the gym, and I'm there to do my training session. I don't really care to chit chat or do anything like that. And the amount of machines that you have is not very much mandatory, but at the same thing, it's so nice. And also just like the gym, you have the connotation with the gym that it is the gym. It is the place where you are doing your training sessions. At home, it's the same with the bedroom, where it's recommended that the bedroom stays the bedroom, which is only then for sex and sleep. And it shouldn't be abused for something like doing the work in your bed, or eating and watching television or something like that, because it could then negatively impact the connotation with the sleep. And the same applies here. I mean, when I was doing my workouts in the living room, yes, I could make it happen, but it wasn't the same. Just the procedure of drinking my whey shake, drinking my coffee, and getting into the car, or like on my motorbike, and just the way to the gym already. Closing the door behind me, entering the gym. There was just that process behind it. And also just, I don't know, kind of just a routine that got me into that mindset, which was missing. And now I'm so happy to have that back as well. And I think that many, many people can relate to that as well. And maybe you will end up being the same. And the beauty is that you now have equipment from at home. So if you decide to actually split it up of like, okay, I'm having like my AM sessions in the gym or whatever, and then the PM sessions back at home, perfect, right? I think that would be the perfect environment when you can choose between those things.
You mean you don't sip on your pre-workout whilst watching Ronnie Coleman squat every single time?
I do. And
I just say, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah, buddy.
Have you watched the Joe Rogan thing already?
Yes, I have.
Oh man, I haven't yet. Because also the internet situation and just moving houses. I just like heard crazy
in the background
things that he was talking about, such as like I was minus 0.3% of body fat or so. Amazing, eh? But the thing is, you have to love this guy. Yeah. I don't know what it is about him.
He comes across so well.
Yeah.
Kind of his ignorance. It's
just like cute to watch. And he's just like, man, I just want to hug you. And you're just such a good dude, buddy. I already love the documentary with him. So I would assume that the Joe Rogan podcast is kind of the same.
It was just so funny hearing Joe Rogan, who has some experience talking to bodybuilders and has some awareness of it, just being like mind blown, like when Ronnie's talking about like coming off gear and things. He's just like, so you tapered off, right? You did like PCT or whatever it's called. He was like, nah, just cold turkey. He's like, you went cold turkey. How did you feel? Like awful? And he's like, nah, felt fine. Just like, Ronnie Coleman was built for steroids.
Yeah. And this is also so cool that he's just like super upfront about it. Like he doesn't tell you what you want to hear. Because I think that so many people are actually like that, especially now in the day and age of the internet, where you have to watch out of what it is that you're saying publicly, which I can understand. But sometimes, especially when you watch football players, when they are doing an interview after the game, they always have someone like a manager, like an image practice, what was it called? An image teacher or so, right? Who tells them what they need to say in an interview. And that makes every single interview so freaking boring, because everyone is just like watching out of not disclosing too much, not losing their face. And when you take a look back at like football players in the 90s and stuff like that, what they sometimes said, it's freaking hilarious and amazing. And sometimes even like there was this one German professional player who had like a pack of cigarettes in his socks. I'm not kidding. You can find it on the internet. And that Bayern Munich player Mario Basler, he was known for actually just like going clubbing on the weekends, drinking, and he really looks like an alcoholic and something like that, right?
It's reminding me of why the hell have I forgotten his name? Not Pippin, the other one, not Jordan.
Dennis Rodman.
Rodman, yeah, and how he was with the basketball, and just like that actually made him a better player almost. If he could go and just be a lunatic and then come and just he could suddenly play amazingly. It's weird. Like people like that, they're just like they're just set up for that sport or whatever it is, because they don't need to nail everything.
Yeah, let's change pace though, because I wanted to talk about one picture that you posted 2 or 3 days ago. Now, when people are listening to that a week ago, about your 10-year transformation. And I found it quite interesting and quite amazing. And I also said it to you privately that I really did enjoy seeing this, because I'm now following your journey since like 4 or 5 years. And it's just incredible to see that you have made the most amount of progress probably here over the past couple of years.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
Yeah, I appreciate that, first of all. Posting it, the message I was trying to get across was, so often as a natural, you get in your own head and you get disappointed and discouraged. And then you may hear and you may find experts on the subject of growing muscle saying you grow your most in the early years and you can maybe gain a pound of muscle in the final years. And it was just more of a showcase of a case study of me who has gone through this journey, and I'm growing my most now. And the reasons for that in terms of just knowing more, like I said there, like we're still learning. Brad Schoenfeld is still doing his research. We're still discovering the best way to do things, and you're still learning about your own body, your own physique. So I think whilst like on paper, it may be true that you grow like 90% of all your gains within the first 5 years, I think in practice, so few of us do. And I think in practice, so few people actually reach their genetic potential ever. I made a post a while ago, and that was inspired from Brad's new book that he released, where he was basically like, no one knows their genetic potential. And trust me, no one's reaching their genetic potential. Like no one is, because eventually time catches up to you, and people don't have the energy, the prioritization, the time to put into their lifting to get to that genetic potential. So I just found it really interesting, and it was really nice to see that it got such a good response. And the hilarious thing is, someone commented saying that you were always jacked, like in the first picture. And the funny thing is, even before that picture, I had actually been training. I'm 30 now, and I stepped in the gym at 15 years old. So actually 15 years is the amount of time I've been training, but actually good progressive training, because that's kind of often the caveat. Is like once you've been lifting properly for like 5 years, you've made like 99% of your gains or something. I had actually been properly lifting now for 10 years. Like I've actually been trying, whereas I was trying the early years, but I don't really say that's anything like proper those first 5 years. And also had my accident, which set me back a little bit. But I still had some, like people are like, oh, you can still see you have some delts, some arms. It's like, well, I had lifted. So you'll be surprised. I'd lifted 5 years up to that point initially. And I look like I barely lifted. But you're completely right. And I wouldn't say, because you've said it before, where take me as an example, but people also can't necessarily compare themselves to me because everyone's unique in their own environment, their own situation. And right now I've almost set up my life so I can literally give everything to bodybuilding if I need to. And I have had, like, even during this Corona period, it's been like a little bit of in some ways I've selfishly liked it, because it's like no social life, no nothing. I can train like twice a day on the weekends, 4 days, like training 4 times over the weekend. I can't do that when life returns to normal, because I actually want to see friends, family, I have obligations. And I think whilst part of me selfishly would love to just invest that time into bodybuilding, I know to be a balanced bodybuilder, and I don't need to, like, it's just not necessary to kind of sacrifice that part of my life. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm glad the post was appreciated. And it was really nice to see Gary, I've forgotten how to pronounce his last name, but we've had him on, not Vaynerchuk, Gary, natural bodybuilder. We had him on the podcast on RC Athlete. That's the one. Just he had shared it on his story and timeline, and then we had a bit of a back and forth, and he was just like, what you shared there is natural bodybuilding to me. I love it. And yeah, I'm just glad that hopefully it touched a few people, because I've definitely said it before and I'd say it again. Matt Ogus is someone I look up to, and I remember seeing his physique and be like, I'm never going to get there, but I'm slowly getting closer, and I'm not going to ever look like him, because you never look like the person you want to aspire to. You might look similar, but I'm just like abs, for example, never going to have his abs, but I can look similar and more muscular. And I remember we had the podcast with Greg Nichols and Mike Israetel talking about genetics and how some people just will suddenly gain a bunch of muscle. Other people are just a slow burn, or appears to be that way. I can only imagine a lot more people are so slow burn than they think they are, maybe.
Yeah. I found it so valuable because it just shows what commitment and work ethics can do. And that also you didn't let other people deviate you from your path. And I think that this is a typical thing, that people get impatient, do maybe then something like steroids too early, which in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with taking steroids at some point if you make a calculated and also rational and well thought out decision about it, and it's not too early or so. But yeah, going down that road, or just like quitting the sport all along because fuck it, I'm not made for it, right? And you just like stuck with it, and even though that maybe the odds were against you at first, you figured out a recipe for you to make it work, right? So maybe you can look at it that way. You are a baker, and now you wanted to actually build a lovely wedding cake. But you had to experiment a little bit to figure out what recipes work for actually making the best wedding cake possible, right? And it took ages. You tried, sometimes it worked, but it wasn't the perfect solution, right? And then you just spent a little bit more time and you dedicated your life to it to actually then build that wedding cake. And that is now paying off after like 10 years or so, or 15 years, 10 to 15 years, if you want to put it that way, right? And I just found it very cool because I'm a huge proponent of putting in the work and effort, because no one is giving it to you just because you're a good dude. It is just what it is. Too many people are just waiting for something to happen, something to fall into their lap, and it will probably never happen. But what it is that you can do is actually go in there and try your very best. And if it's a burden or a chore for you, then don't do it. Do something else. Lifting isn't the only thing that can make you happy, right? And especially if it doesn't make you happy, there's probably something else. Maybe playing the piano, maybe being a baker. I don't know. But yeah, I just love the message, the underlying message behind it, not just like the transformation that you have gone through. This is it just represents all the work that you've put in. And this is also why I sometimes love transformation pictures, even though that I'm critical about it, because most of the time getting someone lean doesn't require you to know your shit. Right? But having a crazy transformation can also indicate that a lot in the background has changed. And for me, at least, for my athletes, I always want to have that transformation pic at the end of the day to then tell like, okay, this is now representing all the changes that have been made. And most of the changes only you will know about. But that is a good thing. Other people don't need to know about the mental changes that you have gone through, or the habits that you now have changed for better, for example. And I was just like finding it very inspirational to see that, you came to that position and it's not even the end. I mean,
yeah, the way I view what we do and what I do each day is somewhat like, and Tanya, I can't remember her last name, unfortunately.
Miller?
Tanya Miller, that's the one. Yes, Tanya Miller. I'm terrible with names, so I'm glad I even remembered her first name. I mean, we talk quite a lot back and forth now. Like every week, there'd be something that we have like a little discussion over. And she said, it was funny, there was another post where someone asked if I kind of am happy with the amount that I've invested into it. Like, do I ever think it wasn't worth it? And she said, it's funny, I wonder if other people question other artists that invest time into their art. And that's in many ways how I view it. Like this, what we're doing, the path we're going down, it's just kind of like a bit of a side project, although it takes a lot of time and dedication. A lot of the habits that you do, like everyone eats every day. You just have to change how you eat, like a lifestyle change to more so suit what we're trying to achieve. And like there are some restraints in place, especially when you're cutting and for shows and things. But in an off season, like taking a protein shake with you to a friend's house, like these are small things that if you do them every single time a social occasion comes up, you just remember to bring your protein with you. That's a muscle protein serving, like a bolstering of muscle protein synthesis for years and years and years. If you do that all the time, it's going to add up. And it's kind of these small things. And I just love tinkering and learning more. And that's why I'm like, learning about sleep more was just like, oof, this is a new area where I can improve the kind of my art and what I'm doing even more. And I can get even more out of what we're doing. And then learning more about like chrono nutrition now is like, oh, another thing. I don't view them as obsessional like things that are going to set me back, because I just view them as like the art and how they're complementing my final piece and what I'm trying to produce. So I I love investing it. But something I wanted to touch on that you mentioned was not letting other people kind of deter you from things. And I would say it really saddens me at times when I do see some people who really jump between things, and it might be jumping between coaches, it might be jumping between programs. And I'm like, you're just not even investing enough into one coach or one program or whatever it might be. And yeah, sometimes the coach is shitty or the program's shitty, but a lot of the time they're just not even giving it a chance. And muscle growth is slow. And if you've done your homework, you know the principles of hypertrophy, or you know the coach knows their stuff, like invest. And that investment more often than not, I think would pay off better than jumping between. So I thought that at least for me, when I had more confidence in what I was doing and confidence in myself, that just helped so much.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's also a generational thing, due to how we grew up in our Western society, that we've been told we can become everything that we just dream of. And that is a problem in it for itself, because now you have kind of decision fatigue. Because if you have all of the options and all of the opportunities, what should you pick then? Right? And this is a common thing that you see, and especially like in a city like Berlin, I assume that's the same in London, where the creative jobs are very much present, right? People are just like jumping from one occupation to the next, because as soon as something is getting hard or challenging, or they are getting a little bit of flack for something they've been doing or messing up, they're just like, fuck this. They don't appreciate me. I rather invest my time and use my, I don't know, creative talent for something else, right? And then they are just jumping around. And by the end of the day, and I'm speaking about years later down the line, they just wasted a lot of time and opportunities because they never stuck with something and never became good at something. Because to become good at something, you have to invest years, no matter what it is, right? And yeah, it's kind of, I think that bodybuilding is one of those top tiers where you have just automatically to invest like 10, 20 years to become just like decently good at something, right? And if you want to just like be very good at it, genetics play also, of course, a role, but you freaking have to put in the work and effort. And just like giving up because just someone else is telling you that you look shit or so would probably not help the entire situation then.
And what I will say is, because it's very true, it's delayed gratification at its finest, bodybuilding. Most of the time, like when I'm learning about new things like sleep and chrononutrition, they're not what's making the difference for me. What's making the difference is every day I'm just like normally robotic, and I am hitting those protein feedings, I am getting sufficient sleep, and I'm doing my training. A lot of the time when you look at these people who maybe haven't seen the results that they think they should, you look into things, you're like, okay, so yeah, you told me about all this supplementation you're taking, and like, I don't know, you wear your blue light blockers, but why are you only eating 2 protein servings a day? Why aren't you eating any fruit and veg? Like, what is your programming? Like basic stuff, like mastering the basics. I think that's actually what's brought me my results. And I think sometimes I might end up talking too much about the details, which I find fascinating. They're not what's made that difference. It's nailing the basics that so many people end up being like, the basics are basic. Like, don't need to worry about it. But they're the things that matter a lot.
And there's where I appreciate very much the bro mentality, because they are just getting shit done, right? Even if it's a little bit dogmatic, even if it's a little bit narrow-minded at times when it comes to, and I'm speaking about something like an example we all know, like chicken, rice, and broccoli. It's probably not the best and healthiest thing to do each and every single day, but it gets the job done most of the time. And especially when there's kind of that elitism going on, when someone is then like, no, you need to eat a little bit more flexible, and then they are bringing up the arguments for health. And then you take a look at their eating behavior, and it's nearly all junk food. Like, I'd rather have someone who's eating like mostly these kind of bland and less palatable foods than someone who's just like squeezing in each and every single macro from highly processed foods, right? You can then always make the counter argument for that as well. And also the mentality about training, because they are going in there and they are training freaking hard. Is it the best? Maybe there are better ways about it, and I'm very certain there are, right? And more well thought out process behind the entire planning, so periodization and all that kind of stuff. But you can't deny that they aren't going hard in the gym, and that definitely leads to progress, right? And that is something where I think many people are just stuck a little bit. They are overthinking it. They are focusing on the minute detail that don't really matter as much. And even I need to reevaluate my approach to the gym all the time, whether I'm getting too comfortable or not. Whether I'm with the RER I hit is just my comfortable RER I hit that I try to convince myself about, or whether this was truly like, I don't know, 1 or 2 RER, because 1 or 2 RER it freaking sucks still. When you're doing something like, I don't know, the 4th set on hack squats or so, right? And yeah, once again, it's just so funny because they are always like cams, but in the end, we've talked about it. I don't like the plain notion of like eat well and train hard, because that can mean a lot of things, but everyone who's listening to this podcast, I think, is quite aware of what it somewhat looks like when we are talking about that. And I think that these things should be in place first before ever considering all these kind of small minor things. And also then when it comes to volume progression, do you really need to do 5 sets on an exercise? Or maybe just getting stronger so that you don't have to do all of those sets. Maybe if you get stronger and focus on getting stronger, and maybe also trying to build that mind-muscle connection, trying to really build a good awareness of RER, maybe you only need 3 sets, which is better. Doing more volume or doing more sets in it for itself is nothing that you should be proud of. It is a necessity for some, but if you can avoid it, freaking avoid it.
I think something I wanted to reiterate that you said there, I'm trying to think, what was it? Oh, here we go. So you're talking about how people are always, essentially, without saying it, you were saying people are looking for like that silver bullet, the quick fix. We all always are like that little thing that you can do, that supplement, that, I don't know, periodization method or whatever it is, that will just mean that you're growing that much more muscle. And it's like they're skipping over all those basic things that you talked about. It's like the basic things, they're not basic as in easy and like comfortable. They're just basic as in they have to be done. They're the foundation that you need to achieve to be able to progress then to the more advanced concepts and thoughts. And yeah, more often than not, they're falling by the wayside. It's that putting that cart before the horse type of analogy that Eric Helms often talks about.
Absolutely.
Sweet. I think that was a good chat. Questions?
Yeah.
Sweet. So we have... Oh, wait, let me try and find if there are any from supporters. I know we've got one from Andrew, which I think is the only supporter question. So, Andrew Potacek has asked, is it beneficial to include fructose in meals to help metabolism of carbs? I've been using some honey post-workout with dinner as I've been looking into mixing high and low and different sources for better uptake.
I don't know whether it has any kind of beneficial effects of the glucose uptake, because I would assume that when you consume carbohydrates that you don't make use of those in the next couple of hours unless you train twice daily or 3 times daily or so. Thus, I think that your glycogen stores will be replenished on time for the next session. So I think that time becomes something that we don't really need to worry about too much. Is some of the fructose beneficial? Probably, but you probably also get a little bit of fructose already coming from table sugar, because that is 50% of fructose or containing of fructose. So the fructose may be good then for being stored in the liver, for quick access for carbohydrates. But once again, it is limited. So do you really need that to help metabolize the carbohydrates? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think I've heard about it talked about as like the multi-transportable carbohydrates, in that you can only uptake a certain amount of one, like versions like sucralose and then glucose and then the fructose. And so you can replenish glycogen quicker via this. And I think, like you said there, unless you've got another, maybe a PM session, but even then, I just, it's not something I particularly think about. I think it is one of those things that is more minutia that may play importance for some high level athletes that are like, I don't know, for example, endurance, and they're using high amounts of glycogen and they need to replenish that ASAP to keep performance high. But I think for us as bodybuilders, I think for me, it's possibly a step further than I think most people need to worry about considering.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, you brought it up. I think for some bodybuilders, there's nothing that we need to worry about when it comes to these kind of things, because we always need to take into consideration that probably we are not just consuming pure carbohydrates in the form of liquids so that we can uptake them as quickly as possible, but it always comes in the form of a meal. And that meal will be digested. And it's not that all of the carbohydrates will be released now all at once. It will be, of course, broken down over time, right? So that there is a constant kind of release. Sure, there is definitely a spike where more carbohydrates will be present in the bloodstream, obviously, but there will be, of course, spikes in the bloodstream of glucose at an acute point, and then it will slowly taper off, but it will taper off. And because of that, once again, unless you are a Tour de France athlete who then zips on some kind of liquid carbohydrate drinks, and where mouth rinsing even with carbohydrates may be beneficial, I don't think that we need to worry about it, to be honest.
One interesting point, and just made me think of this as we were talking about it. I remember talking to Andrew Chappelle about this and using, it was like basically a carbohydrate that was based around performance, like long distance performance. And this was, I think, for a rapid backload approach. And that I think is probably worth recognizing. Sometimes when I've done rapid backloads with clients, it's been a case of like using liquid carbohydrate sources, at least initially, but actually using a multi-transportable carbohydrate, especially because maybe you're not using as much fiber and protein, it actually will expedite everything. That might be something. I wonder if Cliff's ever, he may have already thought about that sort of thing. I've never seen his rapid backload in practice, but that's a time when I could think in bodybuilding contexts where you do need to replenish glycogen really quickly. True. Maybe that could be helpful. I don't know.
True. Yeah, good thought.
Hey, Pascal here. I just wanted to take the moment to talk about our membership site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, an extensive exercise library, courses, presentations, and research reviews. All I need you to do is hit the link in the description below and sign up. See you there.
So let's get to next question. I don't think we have any other particular ones from supporters, so I'm just going to go back to the top from Brandon. Brandon James O'Donnell, our man, has asked, what do you guys each feel your strengths and weaknesses lie as coaches? What a horrible question. Any areas you're trying to consciously improve? Actually, I think we both have one weakness that might be the same.
What is it?
I was going to say, I know you've mentioned before, and I don't know how much of a weakness this is because I'm not sure how much in-depth knowledge we need. I think we've absolutely got sufficient for what we do. But there's biomechanics. I remember you've spoken about it before, and I don't know if it's necessarily a weakness, but it's more so something that we're both aware of that we want to learn more about because it's becoming seemingly much more popular. And I just want to know, like we know, like who knows their shit on nutrition or training. It's kind of an area that I'm like, I want to kind of know what resources I can work with or understand better. So yeah, that was one, but continue with what you wanted to go for if you had any in mind.
And I had a little bit of time to think about it, and I can bring up two things that are the same. That is a strength and a weakness, in my opinion, for probably both of us, is experience and experience. So what I mean by that is sometimes probably we are lacking the experience to actually make the proper calls or just in it for itself. I think experience as a coach is one of the most valuable things that you can have. If you're a coach who has been doing shit since like 20 to 30 years, holy shit, you've seen a lot. And you don't need a study to tell you what you need to do or so, because you've seen it firsthand with the athletes that you're working with. And that is probably more valuable than any other thing that you can have, right? And then you can make the right calls moving forward. If you don't have that experience, on the other hand, sometimes it will become a trial and error, which is not necessarily a bad thing if you are objective about the data that you are collecting and also willing to take it on board when you've made a mistake. So sometimes, of course, there are situations that we've never dealt with before. It's becoming less and less, which is very cool. And I know that many people sign up for our coaching as well to actually have an insight of how we work and how we do things, because we've been doing it now since an appropriate length, especially when you take a look at the average retention rate of a personal trainer that is only 6 months, which is crazy to think about. And that is also then impacted and influenced by the people who have been in the game for such a long period of time. And some people, that means in return, some people are even just like dropping out after a couple of weeks or so. But overall, we've been doing it for a decent amount of time. And thus, we have also specialized in a certain audience. And because of that, I think that we can help those type of people very well already. However, of course, there's always room for improvement, because I would say that in 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years, and especially 10 years from now, I look back and I cringe at some things that I thought was correct, or things that I did now. And the same goes already for things that I did now 2 or 3 years ago. So I think that, once again, it's a strength and a weakness. And this is definitely one that I always want to improve on, because that will definitely then tie into so many other aspects of your coaching skills. And that is experience.
I think, experience is a fantastic answer. Literally, you can't go wrong with that. And likewise, I think we have quite a big amount of experience specializing in like one particular area. I think the first person I ever coached was when I was in like 2013 was the first person I ever like took online a little bit. And then I was a in-person PT at 2014. So yeah, now I feel old that I can say I've been doing this for more than 5 years properly, which is, it feels like a decent amount of time. And I can't wait till I have like 10 years experience under my belt, and then even more time. And something I think we do well is where we lack experience, we draw on that, and lack expertise, we draw upon that from others via the podcast, for example. So reaching out to experts, asking the questions. A lot of the time, the podcast is a little bit of a selfish pursuit and endeavor on my behalf, because I want to learn, and I'm glad that I can share that knowledge with everyone. So that is something I definitely do. And something that was highlighted to me recently of an area of weakness that was through lack of experience was binge eating. I had some clients who were suffering that, and it's not something I've never experienced. I probably actually, fingers crossed, don't ever experience, although part of me is like, well, if I went through it, then maybe I'd be better at helping others, but it's probably not something I want to go through. But I draw on Pascal, who has experienced it, who has a lot of knowledge about it. We obviously brought on Jacob Lenarden. I read through his ebook, and I have applied some of the principles that I've learned there to clients to make them better. So that is an area that I've gone out to consciously improve upon. And I think that I really am glad that Brandon said, like, any areas you're trying to improve upon, it's like every weakness is always something that we're always looking to improve upon. That makes you a better coach. Otherwise, you do become dogmatic and you don't become the best. And we want to be regarded as the best in the field at helping people develop their physiques, take themselves to stage. And yeah, more and more, I want more experience with competitors and peaking. And I have some clients at the end of this year who will be competing, hopefully, so long as the shows still go ahead. So every year I'm gaining more of that experience, and that's something I definitely want more of. I want more competitors. I'm very used to taking first timers to stage as well now. I want to have like help some more experienced people, and like hearing someone like Cliff Wilson talk about the amount of experience he has with like taking clients to stage. That's something I really aspire to, because I think, like you said, like a study isn't going to help you with that. You need to have actually applied it, see how it works out in practice, and we're getting more of that.
Yeah, and that's also one of the things that has changed tremendously for me over the years. Is there was a time where I was very much eager to read studies, read research reviews, because I had the feeling that this will make me a better coach. To some extent, that may very well be true, because of course I learned a couple of things along the way about how things may be working, get an idea of, okay, there may be things that I want to reconsider of how I'm doing things. And this is still something that I do every now and then. However, I reduced the amount of frequency that I'm reading like studies to a significant extent. Like back in the days, I was actually setting a goal for myself to read at least 1 or 2 studies per day. This is definitely not what I'm doing anymore. I'm not saying that reading studies is not valuable at all. I'm not saying that at all. However, I had to come to the realization that for the people that we are working with, the studies that I always read were most of the time, they were sometimes, or not sometimes, most of the time conflicting my observations, or standing in quite a contrarian perspective to the things that I've seen in real life. And there was the moment where I said, like, okay, do I want to be someone who's interpreting research and trying to then see whether this is actually happening in real life, or do I want to be a coach that is helping people? Once again, I'm saying that you can take definitely research into consideration with making those decisions. That is kind of evidence-based, right? Taking anecdotal evidence, but also then scientific evidence, and draw some conclusions out of that. But at the same time, I came more and more to the realization that I want to be a coach and not someone who's interpreting research. And sometimes I was just like confused with all of the conflicting evidence that was out there, and I didn't really know what to do anymore with that information. And this is then where we are then also falling back to the experience kind of thing, where I then drew more and more from anecdotal experience, where I had a good understanding of some of the literature, some less so, but there are certain fields that we have somewhat of an understanding of what papers are out there. But then I drew more and more conclusions out of the things that I've actually seen on people. And then I came up with some decisions. And I think that you brought up Cliff Wilson, and I think he's a perfect example in doing so, because the things that he has done on Peak Week, for example, some things are based on a theory, are based on the scientific evidence, but especially he went out there and needed to try things for himself, and then realized, like, okay, this is what the study said, but I actually see quite a different outcome with most of the people I'm working with. And this has definitely changed for me, and consciously I then try to improve in becoming a better coach, and not letting one paper or 2 papers dictate what I want to end up doing with my own approach, but also with the approach of certain athletes.
I completely agree. It's something that I used to do a lot more of, was read studies and then like try and quote them and use that. And especially after talking to so many experts of how even they interpret studies differently. And if you're not trained kind of in that, it's very difficult to read and understand. Like, I don't know what the best way to test certain things are, and I don't know all the best research methods off the top of my head. I'm just reading it and kind of taking it for what the researchers have said. And sometimes different researchers interpret the results differently. And then it's a case of, oh, wow. So it's actually very hard to digest that. And therefore, that's why I like the people we interview on the podcast are often people that are skilled in interpreting research. They've run research. They've been included within research. And I draw more from them in that regard. And I focus on where our skill is. And we've spoken about this a fair bit more recently, is as coaches. There's not like, you're not going to get someone who has we all have limited time. You can either put all your time and effort into reading research, conducting research. You then aren't going to be coaching hundreds and hundreds of people every year. Whereas we're coaching full time hundreds of people every year. And then we're picking up knowledge from that, and then knowledge from more so the people who are spending the time at doing what they do, and then we can relay it. And it was actually a good example of this is with Dr. Bill Campbell, which I don't think that episode is out just yet, but it's coming out soon, where we talked about refeeds. And a lot of the time he was like, I asked him a question, he was like, you'd actually be better at answering that than me because you coach people and I don't. And I was like, okay, well, I have an answer, but I don't know if I went into too much depth there. But it was very interesting because he doesn't have that practical experience outside the research, because I mean, God, he doesn't have time. So I think, like you said, you have to use the two to complement one another, and we know where we're adding to the field and helping and kind of organize our time a little bit better and managing that.
Sometimes I'm just wondering, right, because we talked about experience, take a very open-minded coach or someone who has been in the field for a very long time. Let's say John Meadows, right? Because he's definitely not narrow-minded. He's also reading papers. I would assume at least that's what he sounds like. But he has like over 30 years of experience. If he was to say like, okay, no, I think that this is the way things are going at the moment, or for someone or a bodybuilder or so, right? But 1 or 2 papers actually say like, no, this is the way that you should do things. Who would you rather listen to? The 1 paper or 2 papers or so, right? Studies can only, once again, guide you to the truth. They can never tell you the truth, or can't ever tell you what is going on, at least not in our field. Like, it's never a black and white answer. And someone who has like that anecdotal evidence for like 20 or 30 years, they have seen case studies over case studies over case studies, right? So this is basically building a report for themselves. Rather than, to be honest, now would listen to someone like that than a scientific paper. And that is not me sounding, or I don't want to come across dogmatic or narrow-minded, because of course we can take the scientific literature into consideration in that instance. But I think experience goes such a long way that sometimes things won't even be reported in the scientific literature that some other people have seen in real life already.
Yeah, it's funny how many, and I mean, it doesn't go for everything, because there's definitely been things the bros did back then that have been disputed by research. Yeah. There's definitely been things that have been confirmed, and that is because it's not because the bros are ahead, it's just because there was nothing there to guide. So they went out there and they did it themselves. So yeah, they complement one another. It isn't you have to be this way or this way. And I think the example of John Meadows and Cliff Wilson, they're good examples actually, where they're guys that are in the thick of it, but also do refer to research, but also might say that it doesn't, that they counter each other. They don't make sense, and they go with their experience. So no, well answered. We got time for another one, haven't we?
Yeah.
So let's just go with the next one down. So Felipe Ferreira has asked, in a cut or in other situations, what's more important, macros or calories? Imagine you've reached your calorie goal for the day, but you've screwed up your macros and are only 60% of the protein you are supposed to take. Do you go over calories and get in the protein, or just leave it be? Or do you compromise and make adjustments for the next days to try and even it out? Oh, this guy's a clever guy.
It is a very interesting question, though. Even though it sounds like, overall calories are the king. In that scenario, I think it's very well thought out, because what if you are in that situation? And we know that protein is very much essential for muscle protein synthesis, and especially when you are in a cutting phase. Mm-hmm. If you don't deliver the body with essential amino acids, where does it pull it from? Of course, there's only one way to pull it, or not just one way, but the most likely place to pull it from are is the muscle tissue and organs, of course. smaller gut and all the kind of stuff. So yeah, very interesting question. And I would just say that if it's only one day, I wouldn't stress about the protein too much, to be honest, because the goal is weight loss. Of course, it should come at the expense of like fat and not muscle mass. This should always be the goal, to lose as much fat as possible with the least amount of muscle mass loss as possible. But in that scenario, if it's only for a day, 60% of your protein is still protein. And do we then expect that all of the muscles are being lost in that scenario? I don't think so. If you're then eating more calories, though, it could be that you're then going out of the caloric deficit. I mean, if I can see a case for both scenarios, to be honest, especially when something like a contest prep is your goal. You want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. If you are limited on time, then the caloric deficit is more important. So I can see definitely a point for both. And also then context comes into play. How much body fat is it that you still have? Are you in a high likelihood that you're going to lose muscle mass when you're very lean, going only with 60% of protein intake for the day? Maybe on a more detrimental side, but yeah, I think you shouldn't. I know it's not very much answering the question, but I think you should always very much make sure to get or match the calories and the protein that you set for yourself, and the carbohydrates and the fats aren't as important. Yes, we need those essential fatty acids, but always make a goal that this scenario isn't occurring, but if it is, then analyze the situation and see what is the least evil in that instance.
Yeah, I think you diagnosed that really well. But I would say probably, because it's not always going to be the case. The ideal scenario is you hit your weekly average calories and you hit your protein every day. So if that means this one day you increase your total calories intake for the day, but you make sure you hit your protein, and then, like he said, adjust the following days. So maybe it means you eat an extra, I don't know what it could be, 300 calories or something. Maybe you take 100 calories off the next 3 days. It's probably the least of all evils, so that you're hitting your weekly average by the end of the week in terms of calories. You've got that fat loss and you're getting the targets you wanted to achieve, and then you're not risking any chance of potential muscle loss on that single day. But again, there could easily be scenarios where if someone tried to do that, that might lead them down the wrong route of adjusting calories too often, and they might end up it might lead to the behaviors that they don't want in their life. So they could end up under eating, overeating, and it sends them down a not positive spiral. And I think what you said there in terms of like, it's one day, just consider that it's one day. It's really not going to matter that much. So whichever route you go down, there is not a wrong or right answer. You could make cases for both. Like you said, in a contest prep, I had the contest prep scenario in mind because I was like, yeah, if you're in a contest prep, you have not the time to waste not being in a calorie deficit for a day. So you would just under eat protein that day. But it's a case of, but you'd risk muscle loss more. And I think this is where if you can eat up your protein that day and then adjust calories for the rest of the week so it evens itself out, so you hit the weekly average, you're pretty golden. So I think he answered the question for himself almost by the end of it.
No, but a very interesting question. And these are once again, the dark question where everyone was like, yeah, this is obvious. Sometimes it isn't. And sometimes you need to just think about it a little bit more in depth, because I didn't find it as easy to answer, to be honest. Because there can always be a case where it's like, okay, yeah, I can see a point for actually going one way over the other. So, but yeah, you put it very well there.
Cool. Have we got time for another one?
No, I think that we are now over the 1 hour mark.
Okay.
Already.
Awesome. So guys, hopefully, I did want to say thank you for all the support on the coaches corner last week.
Oh yeah.
Got quite a good amount of feedback there. Haven't seen how many views it got, but it looks like it's getting similar views to the improvement season, which is nice. And yeah, look forward to more of those.
People hate us. Well, they don't love us as much as we thought they do.
But next episode is going to be you, Jess, and Mike, and you're going to be talking about something else interesting.
The next coaching corner. So
yes.
not next week, improvement season podcast. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for the support. You can look forward to more of those. It was fun to do, and I think we get better and better at them, and hopefully talk about some interesting topics. And probably the nice thing from those is you're getting different coaches' perspective on a topic, and that is that little bit of, yeah, we all know some science, but lots of it is from experience. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So thank you very much, guys. As always, hit the notification button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the what did I say?
Comment, share.
Yeah, and the like button as well to, once again, help the YouTube algorithm. You guys are always saying we deserve more listeners and all that kind of stuff, so this is the least that you can do. It just takes you 1 second, and for us, it takes us over an hour to record this entire thing. So, yeah, thank you very much, guys, for listening, as always, and I guess I speak to you guys soon.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.